Good day, this is Ray. Today, Saturday, June 7th, 2025. But for me, another day of learning and growing. Hope that you, your family, friends, and loved ones are doing well and staying safe. So it's 7:30 on the dot right now, local time. And been kind of taking my time publishing this video this morning. I was actually going to wait a little bit later, but I said, let me just go ahead and get it posted and just give my thoughts about 5 years of paying down debt. In some ways, it's been a long 5 years. In other ways, it just seems like yesterday that this journey of me tackling a large amount of consumer debt and paying it off. There was a lot that's happened over the years. Becoming a homeowner, dealing with my health, medical bills, and all that stuff, and moving cross country, and it's just emergencies between then and now. But I committed to doing this. I'm sticking to it, and I've been fortunate that every month my debt has decreased. Since starting this journey, the lowest amount that it decreased in a month was about $125, but that was because I purchased a home security system that month, and so anyway, looking back, so the beginning of my journey, and I shared this number a lot of times, it was $115,041.89. That's just consumer non-mortgage debt, and it's been longer than I anticipated. No, I'll take that back. Initially, I thought I could get it paid off in just a few years because it just seemed like that's something I could do. I didn't factor in interest rates or realistic expectations. Of course, having food for one thing, paying for medications, doctor's appointments, none of that factored in. I just said I'm going to throw as much money as I can towards the debt to pay it off. And in the first 2 years, I had made some pretty good progress because I was living at home with my parents. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to show you a chart here. But from June 2020 to January 2021, I paid off $17,521.32 of that debt. And then February 2021 to December 2021, I paid off almost $20,000 of debt, $19,562.05. So why did I move? Why did I leave my parents? Well, because at that time, my office was closer to where my parents lived, but then we moved locations. And so, I looked at my options. I said, could it still be possible that I could live with my parents and commute to the office? And that it just wasn't possible. It wasn't safe for me. In the past, I had a pulmonary embolism and deep vein thrombosis. So there was a chance with all that type of driving back and forth that I could have experienced that again. And plus, I was potentially looking at 2 hours one way. And so I said, well, let me see if I can rent a place in that area. And in this area, rents are insanely ridiculous. So I probably was looking at getting a studio apartment. I think at the time it was like $1,600 a month. And I said, well, okay, $1,600 a month. What do you think would happen a year after I moved in? They would have jacked up the rent. And so I said, nah, let me see if I can purchase a home. And I had a lot of debt. I think, not without looking at the numbers, I had at the time $90,000 maybe of consumer debt. Maybe, I'm just not sure. But it was a lot of debt. So I'm like, who would give me a loan for a mortgage, and how can I even afford to make the down payment on a home with, and I just had my emergency fund. And so I said, well, let me look at all the options I had. And this was within like a 3-month period in the summer of 2021. And so I calculated 401k. I already had 2 loans against the 401k, so taking out a loan at that time was just not possible. So I said, okay, what can I withdraw money from it? And I looked at all the options of withdrawing the money, and there was one option where I could have cashed the whole thing out, and I would have had to repay it in like a 24-month period or something like that. I said that's not possible. So I said I'm going to cash a portion of the 401k loan out, which is what I did. But there's tax consequences with that. A 10% penalty for withdrawing it, and then you have increased state and federal taxes because it basically bumped me into a new tax bracket. So I faced tax consequences a year after that. So 2022, I paid off $10,480.04. That was the first time I was a homeowner. 2023, $9,946.51, and then last year, 2024, paid off $12,540.42. So sort of a bounce back from those previous 2 years. And this year, I'm looking at it roughly the same. It's been a long journey, and I don't want people who watch this to get discouraged if their journey is taking longer than somebody else's. You know, I saw where somebody said they paid off $300,000 worth of debt in a year, and I said, well, that's great for you, but you know, maybe they're making a lot more income than I am. I make less than 6 figures a year. I think they had multiple incomes. So it was hers and her spouse's, and so they had a concerted effort to work together to be able to pay off the loan. I'm at the debt. I just don't have that luxury, and that's okay. You know, I'm not complaining about where I'm at, you know, as opposed to where somebody else is. I just want to, encourage and remind you that your journey is going to look a lot different. I have a lot of different expenses that somebody else's, my expenses are different than others. So, you know, I have my medical expenses, medication, doctor's appointments, and meeting my deductible. Some years I'm at my out-of-pocket maximum. Some of you have children, you know, you may have spousal support, a lot of different factors. You might be taking care of aging parents. All those things you have to factor into your own budget. That's, you know, just food for thought. So looking at the chart that I shared previously, what did my debt look like in June 2020? I had a medical debt. Some of my medical debt was in the credit card debt and in the 401k loan, so it's not really represented in this chart. So what you're seeing that $2,666.69 of medical debt was just the debt that I had with with medical facilities or outstanding procedures, stuff like that. Everything else was within my credit card debt, which at that time was $28,582.39. I had debt on installment, which is just a cell phone, $1,119.39. I had loans, which is a combination of personal loans, 401k loans, $32,093.42. My student loans, $46,690. And my total debt was $115,041.89. Now, how my debt looks now, and you've seen this, lots of zeros. Personal loan, $57.75. Student loan debt was $33,858.53 at the end of last month. Yeah, so a lot of progress, but you know, my debt was totally paid off. One of the things I was looking at this morning, I hadn't done this before, but I wanted to see what my total debt payments were for the month and how much it decreased by, and the difference between that. So last month, I paid $1,176.66 to service my debts, which was the personal loan and student loans. My debt decreased by $1047.68, difference of $128.98. And this may be a chart that I do going forward, just kind of give you an idea of how much I'm spending a month towards that. And so I just kind of said, well, what if I decided to consolidate these last two loans? Would that make sense? And no, it wouldn't. For one thing, I'm only 6 months away from paying off this personal loan, And then, I'm trying to plan for next year what it's going to look like when I pay down my student loans. Would it be worth at that time to get a consolidated loan because of the accrual of the interest on those loans? Anyway, that's something to think about later. But now, consolidating my student loan and personal loan just wouldn't make sense. I'm going to stay on this track to be able to pay off this personal loan. I am planning for next year of how I'm going to tackle my student loans. I'm probably going to call the student loan servicer and ask them, it's like, what would the monthly payment be if I wanted to pay this loan off in a year or in 2 years? Realistically, 2 years would make more sense because by the end of this year, I'm looking at around $31,000, $30,000 of my student loan payment. And so to pay it off in a year, I just don't see that possible. If I could pay, $15,000 off in a year for 2 years, then I'll be done with my my debt by 2027. And so, if that's how it's going to be, that's how it's going to be. If for some reason my income increases drastically, then that could change because I'm not going to change my standard of living. I'm not going to increase my costs of living, like buying a bigger home or anything like that, taking extravagant trips. It's just not, in the cards. And that's another thing. I'm not doing vacations and things like that. I'm not, going to the club or partying or, just having these whatevers. I'm just not spending money on extra stuff. I wish that, that $1176.66 that I paid last month could either have gone to my mortgage or to going into investing, saving, but it's not. I'm trying to pay off this debt to be able to do that. Anyway, this video is a lot longer than I wanted to be. I'm not sure if you got anything from it, but just wanted to encourage you to stay on track, keep focused, have a plan. If you need to pivot. If you go backwards in your debt, that's okay, but just don't make that the norm. You just got to keep pressing forward. But anyway, before I wrap up this video, my mom's birthday is in a few days. I know she's watching this, and I just want to say happy birthday to you, Mom. I love you. Thank you for all that you instilled in me and the knowledge you imparted on me and taking care of me when I was sick. Thank you, love you, and just hope you're having a restful weekend. And I'll talk to you soon. But if you made it this far, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. When I post my videos. You can find me at youtube.com/@nightoffmybudget. As always, thank you for watching. You all take care.